Good morning, everyone. My name is Lorna McGregor. I'm from the Human Rights Centre at the University of Essex, where I work together with Sam Dubberley on the Human Rights Big Data and Technology project, but Sam is also at Amnesty International. Within the Human Rights Big Data and Technology project, our goal is to address how technologies today and tomorrow impact human rights. We look at how states and businesses are developing and using the technologies, and we show how human rights principles can help to ensure that human rights are protected, that strong oversight and accountability frameworks are in place, and that individuals and groups are able to enjoy their right to an effective remedy. Our work not only focuses on the AI sector and how to regulate it, but we also carry out deep dives into the use of particular technologies in particular contexts. These include algorithmic accountability, looking at facial recognition technologies by law enforcement and at the border, in the provision of health care and social care, in the humanitarian sector, and in relation to mis and disinformation. Here we'll hear a lot today about how elections and the threat posed by disinformation in the digital age is threatening our human rights. We've seen allegations in the last few years about how different actors, including elected officials and foreign states, have used disinformation to try to influence the outcome of elections. This has involved targeting and discrediting of candidates and political parties, as well as attempts to influence the voting choices of particular groups in society. But dealing with disinformation in the election context, while it's critical, particularly the threats it poses to democracy, it's about much more than that. This is a global practice that is threatening our human rights in many more ways than just elections in the US and in Europe. In our work, we are showing how disinformation can generate a lack of trust in institutions, including in public health, leading to people rejecting critical preventative treatments. We're showing how it can be used to generate backlash, fear, opposition, and the othering of individuals and communities, leading to hate speech, discrimination on and offline, and at its worst, hate crimes and risks to security and even life. We're showing how disinformation can be used to crack down on public protest and political dissent, and how it's having a chilling effect on freedom of opinion, expression, assembly, and association. And we're also seeing how states have responded disproportionately to disinformation by adopting highly restrictive anti-disinformation laws, which in and of themselves can impact upon freedom of expression and association and pose particular risks to human rights defenders and journalists.
So let me give some examples. In my work at Amnesty International, we have encountered disinformation when monitoring a number of situations. Take, for instance, Hong Kong. In June of this year, protests started in Hong Kong against a new bill allowing citizens to be extradited to China, raising the very real threat of political oppression. These protests, for the vast part peaceful, have been met by a violence that Hong Kong hasn't seen for several decades. Police have beaten protesters, fired tear gas canisters directly at them, fired rubber-coated bullets, and lately live ammunition. All of this has been live-streamed on social media platforms, with the videos shared on closed and open messaging apps. Amnesty has spent time verifying all of this in its call for an impartial inquiry into the actions of the police, a call that, of course, has not yet been heard. At the same time, Chinese authorities have waged a disinformation campaign against the protesters. At the start, the protests were largely ignored by Chinese media, but then we saw a shift. First, memes of protesters photoshopped into cockroaches, and framing of the protests in mainstream Chinese media as terrorists posing a threat to national security. This impacts on the rights of civilians in Hong Kong to enjoy their right to protest, their right to take to the streets. It's also sown discord in the local community, pitting Hong Kongers against Hong Kongers, othering the protesters. In Kashmir, the issue is different. The lack of video and photography has led to an increased disinformation campaign in that crisis situation. An internet shutdown since August and the withdrawal of access for journalists during the recent clampdown has provided fertile ground for agenda setting. With no reporting, nobody truly knows what's going on there. Both India and Pakistan have been attempting to fill the reporting vacuum. AFP, the French Press Association, has reported on the circulation of old videos depicting brutality from other locations in Pakistani social media groups to make claims of violence against Kashmiris. In India, it's the opposite, with videos and photographs depicting a peaceful life in the Kashmir Valley during the rounds. All this goes to show that disinformation has consequences for our human rights. Human rights organizations, monitors, and researchers are well used to the disinformation game. We've been in it for years. Human rights investigators are attacked as partisan, biased, a tool of others, rather than the impartial fact-finders that we are. We've had the fake news trope thrown at us many, many times. We've had the claims of bias thrown at us. We've been accused of spreading conspiracy theories. We're so used to it, we have a name for it. We call it the Human Rights Violators Playbook. 5 main tactics there are. They question our impartiality, they shut us down, they attack us, they ask the what about question, pointing a finger elsewhere to distract attention. They deny completely, pretend it didn't happen.
Digital disinformation tactics, that is the deliberate spreading of false information to influence the way in which people think and act, are becoming a key part of the updated Human Rights Violators Playbook. However, we're also starting to see another kind of problem emerge. This is where actors claim that allegations of crimes and human rights violations are disinformation themselves, or fake news, in order to deny that they've even happened. Denial has long been a tactic employed to cover up crimes and human rights violations. In his seminal book, States of Denial, the late Professor Stanley Cohen documents the use of denial by making a deliberate, intentional, and conscious statement that it's meant to deceive in order to spread propaganda, disinformation, whitewash, manipulation, spin, and misinformation. These are his words. Previously, if people saw a video or an image of a human rights violation, which in itself is very difficult often to actually get, they would usually not question its veracity. Indeed, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants based, for the most part, on videos collected from Facebook. And videos from YouTube are making up part of a recent submission to the European Court of Human Rights. However, with the advent of synthetic media and deepfakes, people's trust in institutions and their confidence in telling whether an image or a recording is real is starting to wane. This is providing certain actors with the perfect opportunity to simply deny claims of human rights violations.
For example, in 2017, Aung San Suu Kyi dismissed reports of what the UN called possible genocide in Myanmar as fake news, using a case of misinformation to make the claim. That August, as people started to cross the border between Myanmar and Bangladesh, telling stories of killings and burnings, the Deputy Prime Minister of Turkey tweeted, calling for the world to act to stop this emerging crisis. He tweeted out pictures he said were of massacres in Myanmar, but were actually from other events elsewhere. Aung San Suu Kyi leveraged these images to make headlines in the New York Times and other global media. In Zimbabwe this summer, when a trade union leader reported that he was abducted and tortured by the government for organizing a teacher's strike over pay, an army of internet trolls was unleashed to counter the claims. Some claimed he had been targeted by the husband of a woman he was cheating with, while others claimed he had been attacked by a bus crew for refusing to pay the fare. Some suggested that tomato ketchup had been smeared on his back. Instead of diverting, a government official rolled out the fake news trope. A government official from the Information Ministry called the abduction fake news, dismissing the photographs of the scars on his back as old. When so-called deep fakes or synthetic media reach the level of full convincibility that we really are not sure what is real and what is not, the challenge for human rights investigators wishing to use audiovisual content to prove human rights violations will be greater than simple verification. The challenge will not be just spotting if a piece of media is real or synthetic. It will be countering claims that an authentic piece of audiovisual content is fake news from the perpetrators themselves. The academics Chesney and Citron call this inability to show that something real is real, the liar's dividend. Indeed, in its recent report, Deepfake Labs, an organization dedicated to detecting deepfakes, highlight that growing awareness of deepfakes is already damaging political discourse and undermining the perceived objectivity of recorded video in politically charged contexts. This is only going to get worse unless we act and investigate. So how do we counter this? The solution isn't solely technical. For a human rights organization like Amnesty International, it's about making sure that the fight against disinformation is central to our work. This means we incorporate the fight against disinformation into our research, ensuring it's reflected in our core values. At Amnesty International and at the University of Essex, it's about ensuring academic and advocacy-based human rights research and campaigning reflects a disinformation that reflects a disinformation ecosphere that we're in today, and that we take a human rights-based approach to this research, ensuring that all our work meets the norms and standards enshrined in international human rights law. This is new to the human rights space, but what we have tried to show here is that disinformation is not only about elections, it's about ensuring that every right that we enjoy today continues to be enjoyed. Thank you very much.